I could feel my tears welling up behind my eyes. I could feel my body shaking, and all I could think of was, I can't do this. I had just been confronted by an individual that I was managing, and at that point I'd only been managing him for a few days. And I'd been confronted in a challenging way, probably the most challenging way of my career to that point. I had just taken a promotion to lead my first big team. It was a team of 18. 17 of them were male. 90% were older than me. And to make it really awkward, 5 of them had actually applied for the role themselves. So you can just imagine that it was quite challenging stepping up into that role. And that particular individual, he was one of them who had applied for the role. So he was challenged himself in accepting the situation that had happened. So looking back now, I know a lot more about the situation, and I would be able to deal with it much better. In that moment, all I can think of was, okay, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to call my boss, and I'm going to quit. Just going to run away, going to book a one-way ticket to a nice island, and I'm just going to hide. Anybody felt like that? Have you felt so overwhelmed that you thought, I'm just going to duck out of here? That was me. But I went home, had a chat to my husband. I did have a little cry. But then I thought, nah, I can do this. This is what I wanted. I wanted to lead. I wanted to manage people. I've worked hard for this. So I decided I'm going to give it a really good go. So I went back to work, and I ordered probably a gazillion leadership books, because I thought, I'm going to study. I'm going to do everything I can to become the best and most amazing leader ever. I listened to podcasts, and I started to observe the other managers around me. So I started to look at my areas, my weaknesses, and I thought, okay, I'm going to work really hard to get better. But what happened was, it just didn't click. I still felt stressed. I still felt the pressure, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. I realized that I had tried to become like everybody else. I had compared myself to the other managers, and I tried to become like them. Often in situations when we feel like an imposter, when we feel like we don't belong, when we feel like a fraud, when we might feel like we don't have what it takes, we tend to compare ourselves to everybody else. And we start to look at our weaknesses and only focus on our weaknesses and try to get them better to become like everybody else. But do you want to know my secret for overcoming this and overcoming the self-doubt? Just be like you. Now, if I would tell this now to my younger self, I would be like, yeah, right. Because I am like me, that's why I have the self-doubt. That's why I have the weaknesses. I'm not good at this or that. But let me ask you this. What would happen in your life if you would just dare to be you? Ooh. If you would just dare to be you, your unique self. To be confident, we have to accept who we are. And we have to understand and recognize that we have something special deep inside of us. So being who you are is your superpower. Owning who you are with your quirks, your personality traits, everything you like, everything you don't like, your values, everything you stand for. Being yourself is your superpower. And if you want to have influence and impact in this life, if you want to lead and make a change in this world, you have to tap into that superpower. If you show up like who you really are, you're going to be authentic. And being authentic is the key to having impact. Individuals follow authentic leaders they can trust. Now, why is that? It's because deep down, we all just want to feel safe. We all want to feel understood, and we all want to feel safe when we go to work. I genuinely believe that we all go to work because we want to do a good job. But to do a good job, we have to feel in a safe zone, in a safe space. So we can use all of our creativity, we can take risks, and we can take the big actions. So as managers, we have to create that safe space. There's nothing worse than a manager, and I'm sure some of you know one of these people, that are always in a different mood, and you never quite know how they're going to react in the morning. You don't know if you can approach them with your problem. You don't know if they're going to smile, if they're going to shout at you, or maybe you should just duck and hide and wait for them to pass. So if you want to have impact, you have to be authentic. In this world nowadays, we can't rely on a title. No, and we shouldn't rely on a title to lead. You can all have impact and influence if you show up like the authentic self that you are, and people are going to trust you, because individuals decide who they want to follow. They decide who inspires them. So you have to be your authentic self. But how do we do that? Because sometimes it can be so easy to just wear a mask. Fake it until you make it. Have you heard that one? Yeah. And sometimes it can really work. Sometimes we gotta fake it, and it helps us in the first few situations or a first new job, and just we fake it and we pretend that we got it all. The problem, though, with wearing a mask and faking it is that you can't keep it up. You can't keep pretending that you're somebody else. Because wearing a mask is so damn exhausting. Trying to fit in, trying to pretend you're somebody else, trying to be like somebody else because you think that's the way you have to be, is really exhausting. And you're going to feel stressed, and you won't be able to keep it up. And because you won't be able to keep it up, people will see through it as well. And if people see that you're wearing a mask, they're not going to trust you because they don't know who is the real you. They don't know which personality you're going to show up with on the next day. So we have to let go of that mask. And if we want to lead and have influence, we got to think about our leadership brand. Your leadership brand is how you want to be perceived. It's how you want to be seen in this world. A big component of your leadership brand is your leadership identity, your unique leadership identity. That is who you really are. There's no one-fits-all management style. We're all different. We all have a different identity. We all have different strengths, different values, and we all enjoy and like different things. So when we look at our leadership identity, it does change over time because we have different experiences in life. So our identity can change, and that's okay. One important thing is that we also have to look at our reputation, because we need to make sure that our identity, who we want to be and who we are and how we want to be perceived, is really also be seen on the outside. Because if that's not aligned, then again, people won't be able to trust you. They have to be able to know who you are. So for that, you need to check in with yourself and need to make sure that everything that you communicate, verbally and non-verbally, is aligned with that identity. So if we start to look at our identity, we got to start to think about, what's your story? Who are you? What are the chapters of your book? What are the experiences you've had? The relationships you've had? What are situations that have had a big impact on your life? And I want to do a bit of a different exercise than what you've done before. Now I want you to think about an exercise where you have been at your best. Think about a situation where you have been at your absolute best and you smashed it out of the park. Now you also have a little handout, and the question is up there, and you can use that later on, and you can write in that handout as well. But think about that situation right now. And then afterwards in the networking, share that with another. Share a situation where you have been at your absolute best and share what was the strength that you used. If we go a bit deeper into our unique leadership identity, it all starts with self-awareness. So the example I just given you of the story, you at your best, that's one way to reflect. So if we want to understand who we are, we have to regularly check in with ourselves. We have to look at how are we reacting, what are our emotions, how we feel, what do we like, what resonated with us. We have to double check and check in with ourselves to understand who we really are. And then one of the first steps is to look at your competencies. So your competencies are all your skills, the knowledge that you've gained through your education or the books that you read, all your experiences, your relationships. It's like your little toolbox, because there will be situations in life where you will need different tools. So your competencies is your little secret toolbox. So when we write that down, we can think about tools that we already have and that we're really good at. And we can also think of tools that we still want to learn, because we know we might need them in certain situations. Next, we want to look at our motivation. Why do you want to lead? Why do you want to have an impact? Why do you want to influence? Now, there's different reasons. You could have more self-centered reasons, like you love the status or the higher salary. You would love that promotion because of the title. Or it could also be reasons because you want to serve others, you want to help other individuals, or you want to change the world. There's no right or wrong. It's your motivation. Just one little hint is if your motivation is more self-centered, so let's say you really want to have that role because of the title, the status, or the salary. And let's face it, at some point in life, we all care about the money. So if it's about the salary, just step back and think about how can you make it about them as well, about your team? Because if it's just about you and your salary, they will know. And if they realize that it's just about you, they're not going to trust you. So think about how you can make it about them. So if you want to fight for a bigger salary for yourself, or for a bigger status or better reputation, think about how can you lift the reputation of your team? How can you raise their image? Then we have to look at your passions and your purpose. Because if you want to inspire, you have to be inspired yourself. You have to know what ignites that fire inside you. What gets you really excited to get up in the morning? What makes you smile? Think about that. Think about what is your passion. And by using that passion every day, you will be able to inspire others. And then we have to figure out our values. What do you stand for? What are your fundamental beliefs? What are your non-negotiables? Is it honesty? Is it trust? Integrity? Hard work? Think about your values. And then make sure that everything you do every day is aligned to that values. Because if you show up to your values and in alignment with your values, people will start to see you for that. And that, again, will foster the trust, because they will get a better understanding of who you really are and what you stand for as a person and as a brand. And the last and most important point is your strength. That's your talents that you're naturally really good at. Now, as a society, we're kind of trained to look at our weaknesses. So it starts from a young age, when we're in school. And you come home at the end of a term, and you were really bad in math. And I bet you your parents would have spent more time talking about math and how they have to send you tutoring, how they have to do more homework, how you'd have to do more homework, how you didn't do enough work. And they would have spent less time talking about the subjects that you were really good at. So don't get me wrong, we have to work on our weaknesses because we can't have them hold us back. So we have to manage them so that we pass the exam. But if we were all just to work on our weaknesses, to try and get better at our weaknesses, we would all end up being average at everything. And that would be such a boring world, wouldn't it? So you have to understand what your strengths are. And then you have to nurture your strengths to make them into your real, unique superpowers. The story I just shared with you at the start, when I took that big promotion, I was struggling. I put myself under a lot of pressure. And as I told you, I started comparing myself. And in particular, I was comparing myself to another manager. He was promoted at the same time to the same level. Now, he was over 50. It was a manufacturing organization, so he actually had worked in production on the shop floor, and then he worked his way up into management. So his knowledge was just absolutely amazing. He knew everything, and he was so well respected for that. And I kept comparing myself to him because he was so well respected, and I thought, why can't I be like him? I want to be respected. And I kept looking and trying, and I really put myself down because I just couldn't quite get there. And it wasn't until my mentor at that time said, let's look at your strength. So I did a strength assessment, and I got a report back with my top 5 strengths. And when I read through that report, it resonated so heavily with me because I realized that things that I had just taken for granted actually were my strengths, and they were worth talking about. And then I realized that he, the one I compared myself to, had a whole different set of strengths. And that was amazing too. He was so unique in his strength. So I took my strength and I nurtured them, and I grew them into my superpowers. But most importantly, I started to talk proudly about my strength, because that's another problem. We don't dare to own our strength. We don't dare to say what we're good at because we're so scared of judgment or as to be seen that we're arrogant. So you have to learn to own your strength. And then I was able to show up to my strength. And so my team started to see what my strengths were. They started to see what I could do for them. So the trust grew. And it allowed me to also see them for their strength. So we could each empower ourselves for our strength. So think about this. Think about your unique leadership identity. Think about what is special about you. What are your strengths, your superpowers? What are your values? What do you stand for? And then own that and show up to that every single day to build your brand of your personality, of who you really are. And then you can absolutely lead like you. Thank you.